The Twins drop another one in Baltimore and are swept on the Harbor. They're coming home to take on the Tigers, which should be a little bit easier, but it remains to be seen. We're going to talk about it. This is Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, hello again, and welcome back to Locked On Twins. I'm your host, Brandon Warren, and you can unfollow me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNE. And while you're doing that, follow our friend Dave Brown at Answer Dave Brown. How we doing, Dave?
Don't unfollow Brandon because it's what he wants.
It's all a big, elaborate ruse. But thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Say hi to everybody watching on YouTube. We love to see you all. Your smiling faces. And of course, as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, we're your team every day. If you have questions you want to ask us on the show, feel free to hit us up on YouTube and all that good stuff as well. Today's episode brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side and is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or on Google Play. Well, Dave, Twins found another way to drop one, and it feels like when things go sideways, you're almost watching the same game over and over again. Certainly the scores change and some of the characters do, but the end result is similarly crushing, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, the feelings are awful similar. They all kind of start the same. That's usually with the Twins getting behind pretty early. And I asked you a question at one point during the game, would it have been better to have not come back to tie it all and just lost? And I would say no. I think there were some not positives that we can take into it. It would have been completely depressing to lose another game 11-4 or whatever and not be competitive. And they were, for an inning there, it was like, yeah, they came back. They got a lead. And it's like as soon as we said that, the lead was gone. So.
Yeah, and the point is well taken that they have struggled early in games. I actually have some numbers. Twins have been outscored 36-13 in innings 1 through 3 of games this year. A minus 23 differential that's ahead of only the Rockies, who are minus 43. I don't even know how you could be minus 43 at this point, but they've made it happen. Also, team down in 15 of the 17 games they've played. So they have had a deficit in 15 of the 17, which Rocco kind of talked about after yesterday's game was if we don't come out and score early, and it makes it very difficult on our pitchers. And I think we're seeing that, especially even today. It was a pretty prescient comment with Pablo giving them what he did, and they still lose.
Yeah, it wasn't a huge deficit this time. So, and this was an excellent performance and what you need, the kind of performance that you need out of Pablo and the other pitchers as well. But it was not, I was looking at the end result of how many hard hit balls there were, and most of the hardest hit balls in the game were still Baltimore. Their hitters are champing at the bit. The Twins hitters are, a few times they're able to get a hold of one, but not like the Orioles are right now. The Twins aren't just hitting enough balls hard enough to get enough going offensively, whether you call it luck or rallies or whatever, consecutive hits in a row. The offense is just not getting it done. And granted, two of their best players aren't, three of their best players are out right now. And most of the ones that they do have in the lineup aren't getting it done either. So that needs to change, obviously.
Yeah, the 5 top batted ball exit distances in this one belonged to the Orioles. Surprisingly, the 7th was Cedric Mullins hitting the walk-off home run. And I swear to you that it was like he set the tone in that first game with that diving catch and then riddled the Twins the entire series. Again, I feel like that video gamer on TikTok that goes by Little Man who kept getting thwarted by Cedric Mullins and MLB The Show. Like that just felt like art in motion here in this series.
Well, a couple of years ago, Mullins was one of the more exciting, better young players in the league, offensively and defensively. And the last couple of years haven't been as the Orioles have risen. He's kind of flattened out a little bit. But this year, he seems to be off to a much better start and more representative of where he was in 21 and 22 rather than last year. So he's a great player, and he's showing it. But the Twins, have players like that, and they've made some plays even in this series. So it's not just the spark of Mullins, but continued, things like Gunnar Henderson reaching the stands, and Ryan Byrne, and lots of other players. Jordan Westberg had a really good series. And, another great pitching performance, this time by a guy, I meant to look it up. I don't know. It's been like 7 years or something since he was in the major leagues.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, that's good for him. And obviously there's a reason why the Orioles brought him up. But it also, you can't help but wonder if it's Twins bats just going a little limp at the right time for the outcome.
Yep. Did you hear who they DFA'd to bring him up?
Yeah, the catcher, right?
Panuelos, the former Twins prospect. So he got like his 1 day in the sun, if you want to call it that. But I just felt like that was pretty brutal. One day in the big leagues, 1 game, and ship you back out.
Well, maybe he'll be back, and maybe with the Orioles, maybe they'll be able to sneak him in. So, but yeah, that's it's almost like nothing the Orioles can go wrong at this point. They're definitely, they didn't start the first week of the season. I think people were unhappy with their performance, but the results have been great ever since. And of course, coming into the season, everybody thought, well, this is going to be one of the teams that's competing for the World Series, and they haven't shown anything different against the Twins. That's for sure.
Tim Laudner said this is an Orioles team that he thinks the Twins don't face again until late in the season. But I think that will be a welcome thing to.
If it turns out that way, absolutely. If the Twins get their act together and they face the Orioles again in the postseason, I think a lot of fans would take that right now.
I feel like the really noticeable absence in this series was Carlos Correa. There were enough plays at short that were not necessarily 50-50, but you expect a superstar shortstop to make them. And I just felt like, they left maybe a run or two here or there on the board where if Correa was able to play, that would matter. Now, again, we talked about the upcoming schedule loosening up, and so that will be a thing as well. But I'm still not going to look back favorably on these games after this stretch, even if the Twins get back to 500.
No, it's, games against the Tigers and the Orioles and, teams that you're expecting the Twins to be competitive within the AL Central and then beyond. Looking at these games before the season started, you kind of hope that, well, there's an indication, there's a possible future playoff series or whatever, something like that. And, the other guys, the opponents certainly held up their end of it, but the Twins aren't. I mean, and I know the Twins aren't in a great position right now with their personnel, but, there's more to it than that. There's, like Rocco said, pitchers giving up leads early. We've complained before about pitchers with 2 strikes getting burned. That didn't really happen today as much.
Yeah.
But there wasn't enough offense against the Orioles, 5th starter, 6th starter even, to make a difference. This is a game that maybe it would have been nice to have a bigger lead later than the Twins did, but it did not work out that way.
Well, and they gave up the first run right away, too, which, again, speaks to Rocco saying they've been digging holes. So let's take a quick pause. When we come back, I want to talk about some decisions I felt were questionable, and we'll take a little bit, too, of a look at how the Orioles did some things that the Twins do that Twins fans complain about that I think make a lot of sense. But first, let's take a quick break. And our friends at Policygenius want you to know that life insurance is their game. It is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com PrizePicks.com/LockedOnMLB, or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. Again, that's Policygenius.com/LockedOnMLB. And we also have a word from our friends at Monopoly Go. And again, guys, I need you all to listen up. This is a huge announcement. I've been tracking the leaderboards every day, keeping my eye on the scores, putting all my heart into it, and I'm super pumped to announce I am finally on top. That's right. Obviously, I'm talking about the hit mobile game Monopoly Go. You've probably heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great mobile twist on classic Monopoly, which you can play anywhere, anytime. You explore hundreds of Monopoly brands, places such as Las Vegas to Camelot to the moon, all while raking in a huge fortune. You can charge rent on your iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly. You can charge your friends rent on their properties, your properties, or go after their Monopoly money by pulling bank heists and taking wrecking balls to their landmarks. But my favorite part is the leaderboards, where you can see who's a Monopoly tycoon and who's gone bankrupt. So get yourself on the charts. Download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store and Google Play. Sorry, my tongue started sticking there. I got to get a drink of water here while you're talking. But we have a lot of ground to cover and not a lot of time. There were some poor decisions, Dave, that I saw in this one that I kind of wanted to talk about. In the 6th inning, Ryan Jeffers went off second base. Buxton had a dribbler to the left side, thrown out at third base. I didn't like that he broke in the first place, but you got to stay in a rundown. Buxton is fast enough. Get to second. It's actually a net positive to have Buxton on second instead of you.
I hadn't even thought of that. When the ball's hit like that in front of you, you need to be really sure that you can get to third base, or else you don't go. I also thought not to slough off all the responsibility on Jeffers. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a tremendous play by the pitcher on defense. It was like I think he spent the last 7 years doing pitcher's fielding practice, because it was a spin and a move and a throw on the run, and it was perfect. And it was a bad idea for Jeffers to go that way, and poor execution, perhaps not getting a rundown. All that's true, but it was also a great play by the pitcher. So I thought I was going to hammer Jeffers too, but I'm like, wow, that was a really nice play. He could have thrown that in the left field or whatever. It was really smooth though. But yeah, it's when you're struggling to score runs, mistakes like that, where there's going to be a base runner that's out, but you're costing a base runner in scoring position, and he's not speedy, or you're not speedy like he is. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a mistake.
Is this a hallmark of a team that's pressing in a slump, do you think?
Maybe. I think they've generally, maybe it's starting to, because I think generally they've played well on defense. Mm-hmm. They've done well on the bases. I think we're seeing, maybe it was because no one's going to have a perfect season, but we've seen a few mistakes as the season has gone on a little bit. So maybe that is a little bit of mental errors and tunnel vision and trying too hard and not thinking enough, and or thinking too much and not trying hard enough. I don't know. You mentioned, I thought you made a good point about Correa. Correa not being in the middle of the field just makes a difference in all kinds of different ways. I thought there was that one pop-up that landed no man's land, and I didn't really get a huge look at it, but I'm like, boy, that's the kind of play that Correa gets a good break on and makes the catch and is an out. And maybe that's I'm putting too much on his replacements there, but there's little things like that aren't getting done because he's not on the field. And when your margin for error is tiny, that's another thing that's going to kill you in the end when your defense isn't able to get to balls. We saw Willie Castro not make a play or two in Detroit, and that maybe Correa would have. And Correa doesn't make every play. Nobody's perfect, but I definitely feel like there's one or two instances where the Twins definitely lost out by not having him in the field.
Yeah, and I mean, the run wouldn't have scored based on how the inning played out if you ignore any possible butterfly effect. But it's still, again, a mistake. The other decision that I felt was poor but actually worked out for the Twins was when Austin Martin stroked the ball the left center gap and they sent Manuel Margot home, I thought the ball got to Gunnar Henderson pretty quickly, and I felt like with a good throw, they would have had him by at least 10, 15 feet, if not more. What did you think of that one? Because, again, I get wanting to kind of force the issue, but the Twins aren't scoring runs, but then it is also the bottom of their order. So, like, there's so many different variables in that process that has to be, like, that you have to process in that moment if you're Tommy Watkins. What did you think?
Before I got a good look at the play, I just saw where the ball was hit.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, even though the runner was on first to start the play, I'm like, send him. Like, before I knew what was going to happen, I thought, and because I said that because, well, they got a hit with not a runner in scoring position, but they got a play generated that could score a run, make them throw you out. And after looking at the replay a couple more times, I'm not sure. Like, a perfect throw, I don't think it would have been 10 feet. I think it would have been bang, bang. So I'm, generally speaking, I like aggressive throws at third base. I know these are professional ball players, but I say make them throw you out. Gunnar Henderson was pretty far out in short center field. I thought it was, my instinct was, you got to send him now. You got to get a run now. And maybe that wasn't right, but it worked out.
No, I think your point is well taken. I do want to do this. You want to hear the slash lines for both of these teams this series to get a good feel for how
I'd rather hear some guitar licks from Slash, but if you don't have that ready, I understand.
The Orioles slash 324, 351, 602. So, like, prime Chris Davis, the Baltimore Oriole.
And or even Eric Davis.
There you go. Then the Twins, 230, 280, 350. It's literally a wonder that the Twins had any chance in any of these games.
Well, they didn't really have that much of a chance in the first two. So, but you're right. Yeah, they're just not. The offense is not. It is lacking. I mean, Royce Lewis and Kepler and Correa. That's a big chunk.
Yeah.
And Buxton isn't hitting well, and who's hitting well? Miranda.
Jeffers and Miranda, basically.
Jeffers and Miranda.
Kirilloff, too, I guess.
And Kirilloff as well. That's not enough. They're not hitting that well. It's not like they're going on a bender like those three guys that are out can go on. They're just doing pretty well. So they need like three or four of the guys who are doing pretty well. They don't. I'm not talking about Royce Lewis hitting grand slams every time, but they need three or four more guys hitting like the three guys that are hitting now to generate any runs. Buxton's got to be that guy. I think he looks in between at the plate, like he's getting behind every count, whether he swings or not. He's in one of those funks. So he needs to get back in the spring training mode when he was hitting liners, lasers all over the place.
Yeah, tanks. I do think, though, it's just a one small adjustment away kind of thing. Let's see here. I do. Max Kepler starting a rehab with AAA St. Paul. That is also going to be a sight for sore eyes.
Well, they need a guy I need a right fielder back. I mean, they need the offense, but they need a guy who knows how to play right field. I think Wallner's a decent fielder, but he's not hitting well enough. I think sending him back was the right thing to do. And Margot is not, I guess he can go get the ball, but in every other way, he's not a right fielder. So, having Kepler back in the lineup, it's not going to be having Royce back. It's not Correa, but he will stabilize some things, and he can get hot. He's a streaky dude, and he wasn't streaking very much before, so he's due.
Now you got me thinking about that.
About what?
Streaking Max Kepler. What are you doing here?
This is what we do in Germany.
Oh boy,
you run around naked.
Oh boy, what was I even? You got me so messed. Kepler rehab. Yeah, having him out there in right field is going to be huge. It'll help, get some of that quality of the lineup compact back into a spot of hopefully somebody who hits.
What is this, like a 3-day excursion? Is that enough?
That's what you got. I think the Saints play tomorrow and the Twins don't. So if Kepler plays today, tomorrow, do you bring him back for the opener against Detroit? Because my answer is yes. I feel like the nature of the injury wasn't that serious.
When does Scooble go?
That's a good point. That's a good point. I'll have to look ahead because no, they don't see Scooble. It's Flaherty, Reese Olson, and Casey Mize. So you might
That's
want
a win right there. That's a series win, no matter how the games turn out. Yeah, so you could.
Yeah, not Scooble is a big dang deal.
Scooble, don't. That's my ethos.
Well, the Twins will counter with Bailey Ober, Joe Ryan, and Louis Varland. So should be a fun one. Nothing tomorrow though. Nice, well-deserved day off. Well, when you come back here, did you see this cool story about a son, actually a Twitter friend's son who had a ball stolen from him in Baltimore? And
I did. I was outraged like everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it turned out all's well that ends well during today's game. We'll talk about that. I want to talk a little bit more about the Twins getting diced up by a guy who hadn't started a game in like 8 years. But first, a word from PrizePicks. PrizePicks is North America's largest daily fantasy sports platform. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because it's just you and the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, you just go more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. The app has this new feature called Demons and Goblins. Demon picks are marked in red, and they're a little more scary. They're a little more risky, but you can win big money, as in 100 times your money. So put down $1, get $100. You can do the rest of the math probably better than I can. But if you're more cautious, you can always use a Goblin pick. Those are marked in green. They're a little safer, keep you in the green, keep you in those winning streaks, which is going to be lower payouts, but again, a little bit safer if you're a little more conservative on that front. So if you are into the NBA, you got playoffs aplenty where you can pick more than or less than on 3-pointers and turnovers. And for baseball, you got more than or less than on pitcher strikeouts, first inning runs, which if Pablo's pitching, there's a decent chance there will be some of those. But download the app today and enter the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's code LOCKEDONMLB, all one word, all lowercase, and get that first deposit match up to $100. Join PrizePicks today. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right, Dave. So Sam Cleveland is a Twitter friend, and I just happened to see it through not actually his tweet, but someone else had tagged it that he had gotten a Byron Buxton autographed ball. It was his favorite player. His name is Camden too. He's at Camden Yards, so kind of a cool little.
Oh, I didn't even connect that dot. That's pretty cool.
But so anyway, some account had tweeted, "Hey, Twins Twitter, can you help?" And I thought, well, I'll help. I'm not saying I had that much to do with it, but I amplified it, tagged Dustin Morris, the Twins, and Dave St. Peter. But ultimately what happened was Byron sent up kind of a goodie bag with a replacement baseball, batting gloves, and eventually an autographed bat. And the story went, it aired in the 4th inning, but I just thought, and then good on the Orioles for moving their seats up. It was a feel-good moment in a series that really had no other feel-good moments if you were a Twins fan.
You know, it's if you've watched players give autographs before with kids, you know, they try and make sure the kids get them. But this is a situation where, you know, Byron's, I'm imagining him in the outfield. It's a tall wall and he's throwing the ball and all that. So it wasn't like, here, kid. It wasn't one of those. So, but, you know, every once in a while you'll see usually adults get overly aggressive and, you know, steal these, you know, balls that are intended for somebody else. But this one had been even autographed. The kid put in a lot of work to do this. It wasn't just he wasn't just standing there and Buxton threw him any old ball. So it was kind of doubly exasperating that it happened. And thankfully, you know, Buxton heard about it through Twitter, and the Twins heard about it, and the Orioles heard about it. So everybody made the situation right the next day, even though the kid was disappointed at the time that his autograph ball was swiped by some other fan who ran away with it. But it turned out as good as you can imagine. Like you said, they got front row seats. They got lots of swag, lots of good attention. The kid's name is Camden. It's really cute. It's a very feel good story.
That would be a fun story to write if I still wrote as often as I used to. Right. We got to talk about the Twins getting diced up by Albert Suarez. No runs, only 4 strikeouts, but just nothing going against this guy. And in all honesty, the fact that he was in the minors, had to have his contract purchased and his pump in 95, 96, maybe that's a story unto itself. But the fact that this guy is such a journeyman and you had no answer for that. Like, I get getting shut down by Tyler Glass now. Tariq Skubal. If you're getting shut down by those guys, I get it. But at some point, something's got to give.
Well, what's the name of the 30-year-old guy on the Astros who almost threw 2 no-hitters?
Was it
not Ronel Garcia, something like that.
Was it Ronel?
Ronel something. Ronel Astros. Ronel Blanco.
Yeah, Ronel Blanco.
Ronel White. Ronel, yeah, I'll have the Ronel Blanco with the 74, please.
Yeah, no kidding. I can hear that.
Absolutely. So these things, every time something like this happens, it seems like I'm making excuses for the Twins.
Yeah,
and maybe that's what I'm doing. But it's weird to me if you look at Albert Suarez's record, that he got such a brief chance when he did with the Giants in 2016, and not much after that, and then was basically nowhere from like 2018 to this year. And it was, this is, years out of a life. I mean, he went overseas and pitched in Japan, and I had it called up somewhere.
Those resume gaps would not look good for commoners like you and me.
No, absolutely not. But he was the Twins broadcast. He's like, Molitor was like, this guy wasn't anywhere. And he, but in spring training, I think he had like a 5 ERA, but he only had like 2 walks. There were indications that this guy would be able to pump strikes. Yeah. It's funny to me that with the dearth of pitching and the complaints about it, that things like this happen. And we're talking about a guy. This is an opening week of the season. This is April 17th. We've been going for about 3 weeks, and finally the Orioles have space for this guy who kind of looks like he belongs in a major league rotation. We talked about the Twins having Woods Richardson look like he belongs. Sometimes these teams make these decisions about guys, and maybe it's because they don't throw 98 all the time. But it seems like there are pitchers out there ready to pitch for you if you would just give them an opportunity. And they're not going to throw no-hitters almost every time like Ronel Blanco, and they're not going to keep the Twins down like Suarez did today. But It certainly looks like that's a guy that you could throw out there every 5th day and have some success with. And my imaginary hat is off to him.
You can do mine here. You brought up Paul Molitor. I want to know how you feel about him as a broadcaster, because I feel like it sounded like you were pretty impressed by him. I think his presence is not like he knows he's on the radio. He's just kind of conversing with you.
Yes.
But the insights that he gives are so they're light. They're not like super deep and heavy, but you learn something all the same.
Yeah. There were a bunch of times listening to him where I thought, that is pertinent. That is related to what's going on. I know a little bit more than I did before. And Molitor does not come off like, the game was better when I played it, and I'm a know-it-all, and he's not like that at all. He wasn't like that as a manager either. When the reporters would talk to him, he's much closer to like a real person, whatever that means. But I like Perkins on TV has kind of taken the next step, and he's got like a broadcaster voice. So Perkins has good things to say, and I think he helps the broadcast. And he sounds a little bit more like a professional. Molitor is more like one of the old timers that they got in to do the game today. He's not as polished sounding, but it's still, Chris Atterbury, that's the guy that you're going to go for that listening on the radio. Molitor will give you the little insights and make you, confirm your biases or kind of dissuade you from thinking something silly. He's really good at it. And, I wish that they could get him to do more games. I don't know what the plan is, but I liked how he added to the broadcast. He made it more, he informed me.
To me, it's almost like you're sitting next to somebody, whether it's at a bar or whatever, talking about the game. It's very conversational and very, very nice to hear. Couple things I wanted to really hone in on quick here as we're running out of time. The Orioles also did two things that I feel like Twins fans harp on a little bit. Ryan O'Hearn got pinch hit for against a lefty. He has a slugging percentage of 660. He's been hitting homers left and right, and the Orioles pinch hit for him. And I didn't see a single Orioles fan complain. And they also took out a starter who was cruising, and he ended up losing his lead and only threw like 75 pitches. Again, I'm not trying to rib anybody specifically, but just other teams do these things. It's not a Twins thing. It's not a Rocco thing. It's not a front office buzzing the dugout for a phone call to tell them what to do. It's nothing like that. That's just how the game works today. Managers want to get as much as they can out of a pitcher before he gets hit hard. So I don't know. Dave, any thoughts on those?
If fans, I want to be honest with themselves when they're watching and listening to baseball, they will realize that it's not that this is the way that the baseball is played is definitely the way you have to play it. I'm not saying that. It's just, it is not from left field or from out of his hiney that Rocco makes these decisions to pull a pitcher or pinch it here or whatever. There's math behind it. There's some wisdom behind it. It doesn't always work. It might not be the right way, but it isn't something that is from another planet in the least. This is how they play the game. And isn't that different than how they played the game?
Yep.
Again, if we're being honest, how they've played the game for 100 years. It really isn't. They've had platooning.
Yep.
People have looked at that. They look at statistics. Obviously starting pitchers don't go as much as they used to, but it's not that different than what we're used to.
Yeah, but Tom Kelly was a big platoon guy, Pagliarillo and Leas, and so that sort of thing. Okay, we are out of time. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
You're welcome. Oh, you mean the fans?
Locked On Twins. And hey, we'll see you tomorrow night.